Tell him about the time we faced Bill.
All right. Well, as I remember.
At Avenger headquarters.
Because united, the Avengers are strong.
Welcome to the Marvel Evolution Show with myself, Andy Stead.
And I'm Jarian Gibson.
And I'm Alex Stroud.
How are we, chaps? We all okay? Yeah?
Yeah, just
Excellent.
tired. Been a long week.
Yeah, it has.
Yeah, they get to you sometimes, don't they? They get to you these weeks.
Definitely.
It's nice. I use this as a bit of a measure, actually. This is almost a metric, end of the week, start of a new one, recording this show. So, yeah, you're all good. Alex, you good? Yeah, you okay? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a long week. This week feels like it was like a month, I was gonna try and sneak in reading some comics this weekend, and I didn't even get that in. So it's kind of like one of those things where I was a little bit disappointed about that. But
You settled
Yeah.
into your new job, okay? Yeah.
yeah. And what's actually even funnier too is mentioning Marvel stuff. I actually was looking at Funkos last night, and I'm on the hunt for something Funko related right now, and I don't know what it is, but I can tell you a few of those Wakanda Forever Funkos. They look really good, and I think they're up for pre-order right now, aren't they?
Yep.
Yeah, so I think I'm going to end up pre-ordering. I really like that Namor Funko. Man, that Namor Funko looks cool. So I'll end up.
They're getting better and oh, there you go, Jarian. That was there's an English voice there in the background, Jarian. Is that your?
It's the Australian voice on Siri.
Yeah, Funko are getting better and better at making more detailed Funkos, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I sat there last night, like looking at them online. I was like, I don't really need any Funkos, but man, does some of these look really, really good right now?
Yeah. I was saying to my son the other day actually that we're due a trip to our sort of local Funko provider, I guess, but not necessarily for new Funkos. I'm not that I don't like the new ones. I like you said, they look fantastic, some of those new ones, but I want something that's unusual.
Something that's not come out recently, probably more is what you're thinking.
Yeah, for sure. Jarian, how are you?
Good. I had my my first work trip since February of 2020. So went to Seattle for a week for a big conference for a product launch. It was kind of nerve-wracking, but it was a good week. And I'm back and just gotta recharge that social battery.
Yeah, nice. Good to get back out there in the world, I guess.
Yeah, get in front of people, have face-to-face meetings, no more Zoom. Got to meet some coworkers who I've only interacted with via Zoom and Slack for the past few years. So,
Wow.
so it's good to meet them in person and visit our Seattle office as well. So,
Very cool.
Nice. Yeah. And like you say, just meet people in person. I think it's really important. Really important. I've done exactly the same today. I've met a friend of mine who I used to work with. Haven't seen him for a couple of years. We spent 5 hours over dinner and drinks just chatting.
nice.
5 hours.
Wow.
So he's a member of our group. Actually, you never know. He probably won't be watching now. He's probably traveling home still, so he lives a little bit away. So, but yeah, 5 hours over ribs and beer.
Nice. Good combination.
Yeah, it's a good combination. Yeah, it was good. So I apologize to anybody that's watching or listening if I slur my words a little bit, but I've had a few beverages this afternoon. So anyway, let's get cracking onto Marvel stuff. Let's get to the point, shall we? I finished reading Deadpool's Secret War. I really enjoyed it, actually. Really enjoyed it. It kind of didn't really go anywhere, and actually at the end, they kind of went, "Yeah, I've been here the whole time." But it was fun. It was fun seeing him inserted into already existing stories, and I really can see that that's the way that they're going to go when they put him into the MCU. They're going to kind of insert him sporadically into stories that have already existed and see if he can affect those stories or take something from those stories. So an interesting concept.
Definitely funny to see him probably in the background and part of a story, but really not influencing anything. So it's kind of he's just kind of he's part of the furniture almost, he's kind of just there,
Yeah.
So
Yeah. he says at the end of that Secret War, He says, yeah, nobody can seem to remember that I was there. He goes, I know I was there, but nobody else knew that I was there. So yeah, maybe, like I said, maybe they're going that route for the movie. What else was I doing Marvel related this week? Oh yes, so I've started trying to rewatch Daredevil. Not that it's a struggle to rewatch it. It's a great program. It's a struggle to rewatch it to fit it in time wise, you know.
Mhm.
But yeah, I've watched a couple more episodes. It was inspired by Justin's post actually, but saying about the prison scene, because I never watched season 3.
Oh no.
So I never watched season 3. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to start again, and I'm going to go through the entire Netflix shows. I've got an order in which I'm going to watch it in, and I'm going to give it a go. So I've watched a few episodes of the Daredevil show again. I've watched season 1, season 2, and I've watched some Jessica Jones. I've watched some Iron Fist. I've watched some Luke Cage, but I never got around to Daredevil season 3. So yeah, going to start again with that one.
You watched some Iron Fist, but you did not watch Daredevil season 3. That does not make sense.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Did you watch both seasons of Iron Fist?
No, I only
No,
watched the first one. No, I only watched the first one. I kind of gave up, to be honest.
Well, you can only hear "I'm the Immortal Iron Fist" so many times before you stop listening and paying attention. So.
I absolutely love that gif of Luke Cage just rolling his eyes when Danny Rand's like, "But I am the Immortal Iron Fist," and he's just like, "Not again, dude! Like, really? Like, you're a broken record."
But yeah, I'm going to give it all a go. I'm going to hopefully get all the way through it this time, and yeah, just be committed to it. I think just be committed to it. I think that's the idea. I think just be committed, get stuck in. We've got a long time now without any shows, haven't we? So any MCU shows. So we've got a couple of projects coming up, but other than that, we've got no real sort of shows on a weekly basis.
Oh, where'd Alex go?
Alex, come back.
Oh, he's back. I don't know where he went, but he's back now.
Where did you go?
I don't know.
He didn't go anywhere. Anyway, let's get cracking. Who's that?
So I got a chat from the group here. Hey guys, Alex, go for the Funkos. You don't need them, but that's okay. I saw a re-release of an old Black Panther in my email today, and the chase looks awesome, so I'll be trying for those. Yeah, those chase ones always look pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like those old Black Panther ones actually. There's a great one with him in his white suit. There's I gifted Monty actually. One in the black suit with just without his mask on. They look great. I really like those. It's the one in the gold. Yeah, some really good ones from the first Black Panther movie actually.
Mm-hmm. I also like some of the Killmonger Funkos that they did, like the What If Killmonger. I really like that one. They've done some really, really unique and very cool detailed Funkos now that I think about it, of all different kinds of stuff. Even some of the older stuff, I mean, was pretty detailed, but like it's really getting on point now with some of the details and some of the things that they're adding. Like that Doom that I have with the tentacles that come out, and it's like the monster one. Like, man, that is so cool.
Was that Mech Strike or something like that? Was it? Or?
Yeah, it was like one of those special lines.
It's like the Monster Hunters one or something like that, I think is what it is. Yeah. So
yeah, that was excellent. I remember when you showed that to us. That was fantastic. One that I really like is Death Dealer from Shang-Chi.
Yes.
Mhm.
The details on that are amazing, absolutely amazing.
And if I remember, the mask looks really cool on that one too. Like,
yeah, it does. Yeah, it's just there. So yeah. So let me check. Yeah, it looks great. Anyway, enough about Funkos. Let's get cracking on the MCU, because we've got a really interesting episode of She-Hulk to talk about. Lots of different things happen in that, and I think that will take a while to dissect. So shall we get through some news first, Jarian?
Yeah, so news this week, since you mentioned Daredevil, let's start there. So Charlie Cox has mentioned about Daredevil, and everyone keeps talking about, is it canon, is it not canon, where's it going? But again, Charlie Cox has said Kevin has been very clear about it being season 1, not a season 4, so it's a whole new deal. What's great about that is that we potentially get to tell some of the stories over and over again in the same way they do in the comics. Every now and then, they start back in the beginning of Murdoch's journey as a little boy, and they tell the whole origin story again. So maybe we'll get to do that. I don't know. So again, it's hinting out this is a reboot. This is, soft reboot, whatever you want to call it, but all indications point to being a reboot. Also, too, there's rumors going around that it points to Kingpin running for mayor of NYC in Daredevil Born Again. So it looks like they're taking one of the storylines here from a few years ago, where he actually was the mayor of NYC and so forth. So interesting to see what all runs they pull from for this series.
That'll be
Cool.
really interesting.
Yeah,
Especially after what they just did with Kingpin and Hawkeye.
Yep.
So how they kind of transition from that to that if they choose to go that route.
Yeah, because Echo will be out first. So I'll be interested to see where it goes from Hawkeye to Echo to Daredevil series as they do Kingpin's not transition, but arc in the MCU.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Like, I understand what you're saying. How does he go from where he was in Hawkeye to being mayor?
Yep.
Yeah.
I feel like Echo is going to be like a big chunk of that, like setup of him in the background and him doing everything. So it'll be really interesting to see that.
Werewolf by Night, executive producer Brian Gay on lack of post-credit scene. That final campfire scene is in the same spirit as a normal post-credit scene. We want to put, a nice I guess button on the end of the special, and in a way we have it. But with this, we want to be contained in a story. And so anytime that there's, a tag, it's always what's next, what's going for these characters. The werewolf and Man-Thing don't know what's happening next. They barely made it through this night alive. And so it's always felt a little weird that we will return back to something when, oh my gosh, you made it out. Just celebrate the moment as opposed to carry on. So, and it kind of felt that way too, the way they did that at the end with the color change and that kind of stuff. And then showing them, basically out there made out together. So they could put them in anything, coming up. So they have all kinds of ways they could go with this.
There's been a few situations in the last couple of weeks or months where they've done a post-credit scene almost in kind. It's not actually been within the credits. It's the last scene of the movie.
Yep.
That could have been if it was a post-credit scene, you wouldn't have said it was out of place.
Yep.
The Daredevil mask or helmet, for example, was one of them, wasn't it?
The Walk of Shame, another one. And and actually we'll address that too later on with some Jessica Gao comments on that. So he also talked about the special presentation intro. He said it's a homage and it's a love letter to those things when they used to take the time to say, hey, we're giving you something different here. So I actually love that new intro, and even the way they changed the Werewolf by Night intro and everything. So it was really good. So
yeah, I mean, the Marvel Studios with the lightning and the different style music was one thing, but the special presentation piece was brilliant. I mean, absolutely brilliant. I love the soundtrack that they used. It really sounded classic, and it had those feelings of. It was almost like when I remember going to the cinema as a kid, and they play that sort of bit at the beginning. The intro music, I guess, to the cinema itself, not to the movie. Like
the lobby music with the little dancing popcorn and the little characters dancing. Go to the lobby and get yourself a treat.
It kind of gave me those sort of vibes, though. So yeah, it was good.
It properly prepared you for the actual what's about to happen. So
yeah, that's it. And if that's the special presentation intro to every project, it's like, okay, yeah, I like that. That's nice.
I love the werewolf slash that they did with that.
Yes.
And I was sitting there thinking, like, after watching it the second or the third time or whatever, like, it'll be really interesting to see how they do that differently if they do special presentations for different monsters and things like that. Like, be kind of cool.
Like, for example, Man-Thing, we see the burn thing come across, like the way he burns stuff. If they do his reward special, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Be very, very interesting. I mean, I'd be interested to see what they would do with like a vampire special or something like that. Like
some things biting it or something.
Yeah,
and blood running.
Yeah, all blood.
Yeah. Transitioning to some possible new MCU actress news. Chloe, I keep saying this, always say this name wrong. I won't say Shiloh instead of Chloe. Chloe Grace Moretz has met with Marvel about a villainous role. Yeah, we talked a little bit about it. I mean, I think for me, I would be really interested in playing a villain in Marvel or DC. and jumping into more of a darker side of the role. I love a superhero. I think to be really fun too, but I think it's just about all finding the one that really matches what you're wanting to get across and the scope of the character. I think it would be really fun if it was the right role and the right project. And I heard people say, you know, Mystique, Emma Frost. I could see her as Rogue, as the villain of a Captain Marvel movie before she transitioned over to the X-Men. I could see that too as well, because Rogue's kind of a wild card anyway at times. So interesting to see what happens with that and how that pans out.
Yeah, I'm really keen to see her as Mystique. I've almost been championing her for Mystique for quite a while. You know, seeing her work in Kick-Ass, obviously when she was a lot younger.
Yep.
Then seeing some of her later work as well. She can act. She can act. She's good. She really is good. And I think she's got the physical attributes as well to play Mystique. And just going on your Rogue, I've always said about is it Alexandra
Daddario?
Dondario?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think she'd be great as Mystique. But I know that there's a few other. What's the girl from The Boys, Alex? That plays Starlight.
Erin Moriarty?
Yeah. Aaron Morty.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, she's been sort of coined for a good Rogue as well. But yeah, Chloe Grace Moretz as Mystique, well up for that.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on to some Ironheart news. Brown Girls actress Sonia Dennis has simply joined the cast. Here's the big rumor, though. Sacha Baron Cohen will play Mephisto. And what's interesting, Giancarlo Esposito was wanted for the role, but turned it down reportedly. So I've heard some different things back and forth. I've also said that he could be playing a different version of Dormammu or Dormammu-like, but they didn't want to cross over from Doctor Strange. So it seems like, you know, Mephisto or some kind of other kind of dark being he could be playing, but there's all kinds of things out there floating, you know, whether it's Mephisto, whether it's a Dormammu-like person or somebody else. So
What if he was mixed with like Chthon and it's like Mephisto / Chthon kind of type thing, and then make Mephisto tied to like chaos magic in the MCU and stuff?
I can see that as well.
You know,
big fan of Sacha Baron Cohen over here. He done he done all the Ali G stuff, which for me, I was just, you know, I know people like that. It's taking the mick out of people from pretty much where I live, and it's just absolute class. I mean, the man is a genius. He's absolute genius. I mean, watching some of those interviews that he did as Ali G with some of those people who thought they were going into genuine interviews. It's just some of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. It is absolutely brilliant. And the man is a genius. Should he be Mephisto? I'm not sure. But, you know, to have him in the MCU in any capacity, I think is a great addition. It'd be interesting to see if he can pull off a Mephisto, what type of Mephisto he is. I don't know, but the guy's a genius. So great.
I feel like the way that he would probably play the character would be almost kind of like in a troll kind of like manner, you know, like he's kind of like almost trolling everybody that he's like talking to and interacting with. And I kind of feel like it'd be almost like a Crossroads demon from like Supernatural kind of like type attitude, you know, like, but yeah, I don't know. Like, I really do think it'd be interesting to see how he would play that character if he is actually cast as that, because I just wouldn't choose that for him at all.
Yeah, and I can't see it.
Yeah,
you know, like when just a moment ago, I'm talking about Chloe Grace Moretz as Mystique, and whether you agree with it or not, as it being a good idea, you can kind of go, yeah. I can. Excuse me. I can see that happening, but this one, I'm like, I can't visualize it. Like, I can't see how he's going to do it.
Yeah, and I mean, like, the only thing I can, like, sit here and think of is him in, like, Talladega Nights saying, like, you have made me spill my macchiato to, like, Ricky Bobby, you know? Like, it's just, like, one of those things. Like, it's just, like, I can't really take him seriously in, like, a role that's supposed to be, like, kind of, like, Mephisto's kind of, like, a pretty big bad entity, you know? So, like, I can't really picture him, like, being so comedic in that role, but...
Yeah, or being not comedic, you mean?
Yeah, well, I'm saying him being such a comedic person, being like a serious role, you know, but like, I know he's done some other stuff, but
no, I agree. I totally, that's kind of my point. I'm like, really? He's great, but could he do it? I don't know.
And speaking of the trolling that he does in some of his roles, he was on my list for if they ever did Tony Masters. One of the people on my list to be cast in that role
Really?
was him. Yep.
I mean, he'd have the gab for it.
Yep.
Yeah, brilliant.
More rumors for Ironheart. It seems they're adding another magic user in ally of Doctor Strange. So actress Reagan Aaliyah, who joined the cast at the end of August, is set to play Zelma Stanton. Stanton is a relatively recent addition to the comics. I think in 2015, at the beginning of Jason Aaron's run on Doctor Strange. So he's worked with Zelma, agreed to work at the Sacred Centurion as a librarian, has appeared in Strange Academy series, in some of them, in which, they had some of the most powerful magicians in Marvel Universe have opened a school for young magic users. So we're going to have the Hood, who looks like to be the bad in here. We're going to have Ally with magic, and then it looks like we're going to have Mephisto, who could be, I don't know if this is going to be a big role for Mephisto. This could be something like where the Hood gets the boots and everything from, where he steals them off another, and the cloak, where Mephisto gives them to somebody else. The Hood steals them because not steals them, but he finds them, and that's how he gets his powers in the comic. So it could be a small role. We'll see what it leads to.
Which that Hood, I was gonna say the Hood and the Hood, the cloak or whatever, and the boots, they're so strange. It's like the cloak gives him like invisibility, and like the boots let him like basically just step and walk wherever he wants to. They're so interesting,
Yeah.
like, such little interesting. It's like the cloak of invisibility is what I always think
Harry
of Harry
Potter.
Potter. Yep, every time.
And then boots like something like that, Mission Impossible, we can stop walking up walls or something. So John, you mentioned there about the school, because there was a school that was opened, wasn't there, in the comics? Doctor Strange opened a school of all the I almost picked it up the other day, and now that's I'm gonna go and pick it up now and have a little read of that one, because like you said, there's all those sort of little side characters that could potentially pop up, seemingly in Ironheart.
Yeah.
Which I'm not totally up to date with all of that side of the story. So, I know that they're saying that Ironheart be this kind of technology versus magic type show, aren't they? But I didn't know. Does she cross over in that way in the comics? I don't know.
I got to go back and check. I don't remember when I read her runs that she does a lot of magic crossover. I got to go back and double check.
And obviously, that's a way that they're going to integrate her into the MCU. So, like I said, pick up some of those issues.
Mm-hmm. I feel like it also kind of plays into the fact of we've seen with like Tony Stark and shows and the comics and stuff, he doesn't really believe in magic almost, like he's almost like he's like a skeptic to it, of it's just like he doesn't understand it exactly or how it works, but he'll figure it out at some point, like kind of type of attitude. And I feel like that'll kind of come into play here with her as well, as like maybe she'll be skeptical as well and be like, I just think this is something I haven't figured out just yet,
What's that Jane Foster saying though? Is that like magic is a science that we don't understand yet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were literally both thinking of the same thing. Was it Jane? It was Thor though, wasn't it? I thought that was Thor.
I thought it was Thor or Jane, but it was in the first movie when they were talking about something. Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was in Dark World when they were doing the thing with the Aether, and she's like asking what all those things are or whatever. And she's like, "Oh, is this?" I could be wrong about that.
It might have been that too, because remember, the face, whatever, blah blah blah. Yeah, the spectrum phase analyzer or something. Yeah,
yeah.
It's definitely those people though. Something like that, exactly that along those lines. Magic is just science we don't understand yet. Which, to be fair, is kind of true in the real world anyway, isn't it? Because anything you find magical, if you look back in time, if 100 years ago, well, maybe more than 100 years ago, 500 years ago, people were looking at lightning and thinking that it was magic, or thinking that it was the gods throwing down their wrath or whatever it was. And, science has proved since then what it is. So we're like, oh, okay, now we actually understand what it is. Funny enough, I was saying to somebody today actually about things that we don't understand that we're scared of. Because we don't understand them, because we don't understand it, we're scared of it. Once we understand what it is, once we've got the knowledge, we become a little bit more receptive to it, don't we? So it's the same, and I guess in the way what you was just saying there, Alex, it's the same as Tony Stark. Really, he doesn't understand it, so he kind of pushes it aside. He's like, it doesn't matter, I'm not going to worry about that at the moment. Once I figure it out, it'll then matter.
Well, and the other thing I feel like with his attitude too is it's not really something that he wants to accept. Like it's not something that he can just like break down, and be like, oh, this is the nuts and bolts of how this works. Like because with magic, like there doesn't have to be like an explanation of how things work. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yep.
it just is one of those things. So with a character that's literally like an engineer, that's hard for him to accept, you know?
Moving on to some Wakanda Forever news. Tana Huerta addresses Killmonger comparisons. He says, I hope so, when he's asked if audiences will gravitate toward Namor like they did to Killmonger. He made a great antagonist and people loved him. I love that character. When I first saw Black Panther, I hope the people engage in the same way with Namor. So, not a villain, antagonist.
Yeah. And I think that's a really important distinction. I'd quite like to see. I don't know whether I want to see him be like Killmonger. Like I don't know. I want to see Namor being the type of person who I don't like, but I want to see more of.
Yep.
It'd be really interesting if he like causes this big issue, like causes like Wakanda about to sink down into like the ocean or something, or fall into like a sinkhole, and then he's like, all right, now we have to help Wakanda. Like now we need to fix what we just caused. Like he flips the switch, flips the script, and he's like, you know what? Like now I'm not gonna do this anymore. Like let's help them. And that's where I kind of feel like that antagonist, not the villain, but like that's where we see that like kind of like how Killmonger was like, hey, we're going to do this one way, except for Killmonger didn't really help anybody. Like he's going to help Wakanda. It's like he comes in as a villain, but then he actually ends up being the hero kind of type of thing. I could see Namor kind of playing that side.
Yeah, and if they want to go Namor on that arc like he has in the comics, he's not going to be able to go full villain and get to a place where he can't be redeemed. And by the end of Wakanda Forever, maybe or a post-credit scene or something, maybe he'll have some redeeming quality to put him on that path to be an ally instead of an antagonist.
Yeah. See, I don't want to see him. I don't want an anti-hero. I don't want an anti-hero. We've seen so many I don't know. I don't know whether I feel like the anti-hero thing is being overdone a little bit at the moment. And I want a villain, but I want a villain who I can kind of like. You know what I mean?
Like Doom.
Yeah.
Speaking of Doom, no.
I mean, I guess you want different types of villains, don't you? Like I want a villain who is just pure evil. Like, give me a villain who's pure evil, but also give me another villain who's doing villainous things, but I kind of like him. Namor was on the Illuminati for a reason. He would make decisions that maybe the heroes wouldn't make, but for the betterment of everybody. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Here's one from the chat. Maybe it's just a wild card, which, he could be a wild card. You never know. Look what he's done in the comics arc. He pretty much, then he kidnapped Sue once. He saw Sue, was like, yeah, I'm getting that, and he kidnapped her and that kind of stuff. So, like I said, he could be a wild card. He could be an ally. He could be an antagonist. He could be, just a wild card at times. So
he could be all of those things.
Yeah.
Let's let him be all of those things. There's 1 minute you hate him. The next minute you're like cheering for him. The next minute you're laughing with him. The next minute you're kind of, booing him. Let him do all of those things. Yeah.
And I almost feel like, in his situation, normally, like anything that jeopardizes Atlantis, he's going to be concerned about. So he's going to take that as like number one issue. So I'm really curious if we have some scenario towards the end of this movie where both Wakanda and Atlantis are in jeopardy in some way. And they have to come together and work together to resolve that issue. And that's where he's like, not really the antagonist. He starts out that way, but flips,
Yeah, and I still think that there is someone pulling the strings, Puppet Master, and from the chat, I hope we get Doom for the villain. I still think Doom is involved in this, pulling the puppet strings and being manipulating Namor and that kind of stuff. And I still think, just from what we've seen from the trailers and everything, that Wakanda and Atlantis have been connected in some past type of thing. So, and I hope, we get Doom as a post-credit scene. Another one from the chat here, he's kind of like Loki. Perfect example, so.
Yeah, operates on self-preservation, I guess, kind of more than anything.
Yep.
Huerta
also talks about his future when he was asked about it. He says, I hope so, because I want a bigger contract. I want more zeros in my contract. No, I'm joking. I mean, the mythology around Namor is huge. You can be crazy with all this cultural aspect. You can create a lot of things with Namor, because they take a fantastic source of stories and mythology and religion and everything. So I hope they decide to keep going with the character past its own story or whatever. So yeah, because he's been involved across the board, like Illuminati, Avengers. He's had interaction with Fantastic Four. I think they actually introduced him in comics, wasn't it? The Fantastic Four, I think was his first appearance. So he has all kinds of history in the comics they could pull from and go to, just naming those. And it's funny he says fantastic. Maybe we'll see him in Fantastic Four. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Coogler also confirms when the movie takes place. He says Ramonda realizes it's been a year since T'Challa's passing, and Shuri's still not healing. She's not taking steps to move forward in a healthy way. They take a retreat, stepping away from the city, from the technology, to sit with no distractions and perform with essentially a grief ritual. That's when Namor shores up. So it sounds like they're doing this, and that's that scene we see when Namor walks up to Queen Ramonda in the trailer, is that they're outside of Wakanda somewhere, and that's when he rolls up and is like, we need to talk or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously with that quote there, I saw that last week, and it does tell us kind of when it is, but not really. It says it's a year after T'Challa died, but when did T'Challa die?
Yeah,
we don't know that point at this point. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
It could be.
Yep.
We might not necessarily be up to date in the Marvel universe. I think the latest thing we've got so far is Miss Marvel, isn't it? Or I think that's the furthest point we've got to.
Or she was We're Up by Night, the furthest point at the end.
Yeah,
I thought.
Yeah, potentially. So
yeah,
is that year a year? Like, is that now, or is that a year? When is that actually going to be set? So we know it's a year after T'Challa died, but we don't know when T'Challa died, so we don't actually know when it is really. We just know it's a year after that happened.
Yeah, and also too, think about it. It could be a year after the return back from the snap, right? After the finale in Infinity War, it could be a year after that. It could be before Eternals, and before we have Tiamat sticking out of the ocean. Because honestly, if it's after that and Namor doesn't address that, or it's not brought up in Wakanda forever, that's a huge miss by Marvel Studios there. Because how can he be the king of the ocean, Atlantis, that kind of stuff, and not mention some big ass celestial sticking out of the water?
Yeah, so it could. I mean, in theory, it could take it could be set at any point from a year after or beyond Endgame.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Alex. Well, I was just to say, so 2023 Endgame happened in, supposedly. So it could be any point up until 2024.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, it could be any time after that, because we just don't know when T'Challa died. So
I just find Tiamat so interesting that he's just floating out there in the middle of the ocean, and that would have no impact on Namor whatsoever. Like, I mean, that would disrupt everything in the ocean that's living in the ocean. That would, shift the entire geography and everything. So that has to at least come up once in this movie, as somehow leading to this, or
if it's after Eternals. Yeah,
that's true. If it's after Eternals. So
also, here's interesting. Remember, I think, was it last week, a week before, we talked about, they were saying that the movie was tracking for less than the original movie. And I said, I don't believe it, because of the culture aspect between, Latin America and the whole with Black Panther and everything. Well, guess what? It's tracking for a massive debut now. Box Office Pro believes Wakanda Forever could open between 180 and 225 million, working in the film's favor. Of course, is that Black Panther was a phenomenon and demolished record with a 202 million domestic debut. So domestically, it's tracking between 180 and 225 right now. So again, like I said, people were just getting, the cart before the horse there. And I'm like, there's no way this is not going to make more than the first movie, especially with everything with this movie. You got how they're going to handle, Chadwick Boseman, the whole Tenoch Huerta thing. They're pulling a huge demographic they probably haven't pulled in before into the MCU with this movie.
mm-hmm.
Yep. I got my tickets.
I haven't got mine yet, but my wife and I are probably going on a Friday during the day, while the kids are in school.
When it's quiet, yeah.
Yeah. From the chat, it's going to be huge, and I completely agree there.
Yeah, that's Jamie. Hi, Jamie. Hey,
Jamie.
And Roxy's there as well.
So we have some Blade news, and I don't know about this Blade news or not. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm leaning towards a good thing so they can get their ducks in a row before things start. So they temporarily shut down production as the director search continues. Marvel Studios is reportedly halting Blade, at least temporarily, as it continues its search for a new director. The news comes courtesy of The Hollywood Reporter, with the outlet reporting the decision was made in order to further develop the movie and continue a search for a new director. The movie was expected to enter production in November. After that, I've been doing some more looking around. It does sound like Blade is looking at a summer 2023 production start. Now, supposed to be next month. So now we're looking, 7, 8, 9 months later now. They're pushing it, which, this movie has script problems, that kind of stuff. Mahershala Ali is still happy. He's still ready for the role. It's now it's getting that script, getting the director, redoing that script and going through there. There's been other rumors too that, with the whole script rewrite and this kind of stuff, I've seen people talk about maybe Ghost Rider will be introduced through Blade. Some other characters might get introduced, but something to keep an eye on. There's all kinds of rumors floating around about that.
Yeah, I'm at the train of thought that, if they've knocked it back, they've knocked it back for a reason. And
Yep.
I'd rather them knock it back and take the time rather than just release a subpar product. So
It almost feels like they're going to do like a start from scratch thing here with this, because it feels like whatever they had planned before. It feels like they did have somewhat of a plan put together, and now it feels like that's completely out of the window. So
Yep, and I agree from the chat here. Hope they don't rush it, which I agree to as well. Because you're gonna have a new director come in with a new vision. I'm sure Marvel Studios will say, "Hey, we have X, Y, and Z we need to have done," but you have your flexibility to bring your spin on it, and that's where the new script will probably come from, is working with a new director and their vision. Last piece of the Blade news is that Michael Giacchino rules himself out of Blade. He was one I said, let him handle the MonsterVerse, the horror side of Marvel. But he says, look, I love Blade. I think that's an amazing character. It's one of my favorites, but I feel like that thing is already in motion in a way and I'm in motion on other things as well. And it's a whole, it's just timing wise, it's a little crazy. So I feel like, I want to be a great movie. I want that to be an awesome movie because the character deserves it in a huge way. But yeah, right now, no. So it almost sounds like he's working on other projects, He could be working on the rumored Man-Thing special presentation that's supposed to be coming next year. Maybe he's doing stuff on the Agatha project side as well. He's involved in other things. So interesting to see what else he's working on. He's also a composer, so he could be doing more music side for Marvel right now instead of the director side. So interesting to see what else he pops up in for projects. Quantumania. Jonathan Majors, strength and conditioning coach, confirmed Warrior Kang variant is coming. He went to say he's the warrior version of Kang. So there was a focus on what that warrior would look like, who's been around the ages and has developed every type of combat skill. It was about making him look like an imposing figure. So that's going to be interesting to see. And he looks jacked too for Creed 3 as well. If you've seen the pictures of him, he is jacked right now. Which, kind of possibly goes hand in hand with being the Warrior King for Quantumania.
Which, Jonathan Majors has always been in pretty good shape. I remember him being pretty jacked in Lovecraft Country too. So, he's always been in pretty good shape. But, he definitely looks like he's at his peak right now.
Well, even the movie White Boy, he was in. He looked like he was in pretty good shape too as well. So. Majors also addressed his transformation into Kang. He says, I look at Kang and I go, okay, cool. It's a certain IP where people expect this at a bare minimum. No one should put themselves or their families in a place where they're hurting. But your own discomfort is not necessarily a bad thing. That's growth. It's not comfortable, but you're here to save the world, aren't you? Or take over the world. So interesting. So the save the world thing is interesting. But it almost reminds me of that, was it Avengers Assembled or Earth's Mightiest Heroes, where he had to go back in time to face the Avengers because Captain America did something that impacted his future.
Yeah.
So
it was just like them finding Captain America and him being part of the Avengers jeopardized the whole timeline or whatever.
He's a little bit like that, though, isn't he? He's a little bit like, I'm going to save the world, or I'm going to save civilization, and I'm the only one that can do it, and that whole attitude.
Yes,
It's kind of like Thanos. I mean,
Yep.
in a way,
Yeah.
but like on a multiversal scale in the
Yeah, and over the whole of time rather than just in one moment. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like Quantumania. He's more of trying to fix things that impact his future, and then as we roll into the Avengers King dynasty is when he becomes the Conqueror, possibly.
So I think Earth Mightiest Heroes, Jarian, the cartoon, that was not when Ravonna is dying
Yes.
and that he basically tracks it back to Captain America.
Yep.
And he's
She's like stuck like in like a time phase or something.
Yeah,
to
that's
keep her
right.
from dying.
Yeah, and he tracks it back to it being Captain America's fault. And that's why he wants to kill Captain America. Yeah.
And doesn't he like show them a future at some point? Like he's like, "Oh, this is the future that your presence and meddling here will create," and all
Yep.
this kind of stuff. Captain America, like,
Yeah, it's actually a pretty good episode. So if you haven't watched it, you go check it out.
I mean, it's a 2-parter as well.
Yep, I believe so. So moving on to some other news, there is an updated release schedule for Marvel Studios now. So Blade, previously dated 11/3/23, moves out to 9/6/24. Deadpool. Actually, I'll read these better for different regions of the world because I know my dates are U.S. dates. So let me start over here. So Blade previously was November 3rd, 23, is now going to be September 6th, 2024. Deadpool was previously September 6th, 24, is now going to be November 8th, 2024. Fantastic Four, previously dated November 8th, 2024, moves out to February 14th, 2025. And in Secret Wars, previously dated November 7th, 2025, is going to move out to May 1st, 2026.
So a couple of things there. I think, and Jamie, I think she's listening as well. She brought up the fact that with Blade being delayed, are we going to get Armor Wars moved up and into, not necessarily into the Blade slot, but are we going to get Armor Wars quicker than we thought? So that's one thing. I think she might have a point there. And the other thing is, I heard the other day somebody, I can't remember who it was. It wasn't me. Not going to take credit for something I didn't say, but they said, giving more space between Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars is a good thing.
Yep.
I agree, because previously it wasn't even a year, and actually now they've got, I think it's a year and a day in between those two movies, which I think is a good thing because it gives a little bit more room to develop a story between those two, what seem to be big events.
Yeah, and definitely he gives them time to flesh things out more. Don't rush things, like they said before with Blade and so forth. And speaking of Armor Wars, I posted a rumor from the Cosmic Circus on the page where it says that Armor Wars could be another place where they get introduced Doom to the MCU as well. Just because if him and Iron Man technology, that kind of stuff that Doom tried to acquire, that maybe that could be Armor Wars, and then making it a movie now makes it even bigger as well than just a Disney Plus series. So, that's one to keep an eye on how that fleshes out, and what that's going to be about now, because they do all kinds of things with Armor Wars right now.
Yeah, I think as we said a couple of weeks ago, the initial idea of Armor Wars, I think is going to be unrecognizable from that idea that they originally had, however many years ago that was. I think it'll be a completely different program, and I would not be surprised if it even changes its name.
Yep.
Or at least adds a subtitle.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Armor Wars: The Rise of Doom.
Which I mean, I think it would be pretty interesting too, and it would fit right in with the whole like Armor Wars thing. If like Doom just gets like a Tony Stark Iron Man suit and then makes that into his Doom armor, and that would fit kind of well.
Or think about this, because we know that right now it sounds like Secret Invasion will lead into Armor Wars. We know that Secret Invasion was kind of the rise of Osborn and other teams and that kind of stuff. What if they make Doom the person
Osborn kind of
Osborn-like, but Doom's in it for himself? Doom's getting the technology for himself, and that leads into Armor Wars. I think that would be a pretty cool story arc, because Secret Invasion would be like the good time for someone to rise up like that and be like, hey, I can help out with my ulterior motives, and then lead into a whole movie of Rhodey basically, versus Doom and bringing other people in to help him.
It'd be like Doom setting himself up like Mysterio to look like the hero, but Doom can actually do it versus like Mysterio who's kind of putting on a show.
Yep,
Whereas,
exactly.
Kinda
From the chat here, I think a lot of us think more time between Avengers movies will be beneficial in the long run. Completely agree there.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Just going back to the armor and villains. getting Tony's armor. I'd really like to see Red Skull get a bit of Tony's armor.
Mm-hmm.
That was
or his daughter.
yeah. But that was really cool in Avengers Assemble in the cartoon to see him
Yep.
get that armor. So that would be really cool to see that happen on screen. And more Red Skull, brilliant. It was put in the group the other day about Christopher Waltz. Who could he play? And I think me and RMC basically just went, it's got to be Schmidt. Yeah, it has to be. Like, it can't be anybody else. Surely it can't be anybody else.
And I feel like after Black Widow, where they had that little like name drop of Crimson Dynamo as a like mistaken identity for Red Guardian, they should totally put like one of the like 12 people who were Crimson Dynamo like in Armor Wars and have that be like, another thing. Like, we've already had the name drop once. Like, let's go ahead and see it now,
Yeah, they're good at that though, aren't they, Marvel? They're good at doing that. They're good at that one little tiny like moment, like on a poster, or like you say, as a name drop, and then kind of go, oh no, now we've got a whole story about this thing.
Yep. It's like a thread that's hanging. They let their hang for a second. They tug on it slightly for the first little breadcrumb, and all of a sudden they pull the thread completely, and it breaks wide open.
Yeah.
Well, and it sticks a little bit more too, because Crimson Dynamo and Red Guardian were on a team together with the Winter Guard. So like, it's kind of like the fact that she would misidentify him as one of the team members. It's like, all right, come on, like that's your dad, and you're calling him by the wrong team name, like team member name. So,
so I have some Nova news. This week reports are dropping that Nova will be a special presentation. So
is that still at this stage?
There's all kinds of reports out there. I don't know if it's more on the report stage versus the rumor stage right now, but I keep seeing it a lot pop up, and even the more notable people out there that I follow have been talking about it. So
I'd be really interested to see what they do with this. They should totally make this special presentation about the fall of Xandar.
Exactly.
And do that whole thing where it's like, I mean, they don't even really have to go into like Thanos destroying it. It can just be like more or less like about him kind of like rising from the ashes of Xandar and being one of the last Nova left. And
making it to Earth and transferring his power to Sam Alexander or Rick Ryder or
You know what? On your point there, Alex, actually, I don't know whether this is what you meant, but if it is what you meant, it's cool. If it's not what you meant, this is a good idea. Almost have special presentations, not necessarily on a character, but on a moment, on a thing. Like, so the special presentation isn't about Nova. It's about the fall of Xandar.
Yes.
Yeah. Or like a special presentation about some other.
The fall of Zenlaw.
Well, maybe, why not? Yeah, and obviously then Norrin Rad or Silver Surfer is just in it. It's not about him. It's about this moment in time, and that is kind of a way to introduce characters in a different way, rather than just going, oh, here's a character, here's another project named after a character. This is actually about the fall of Xandar or the fall of Zenlar or whatever it might be, and actually this is a way that we can introduce whoever we want. It's not to do with this one person. It's to do with this moment in time.
And I think you could take like a character like Silver Surfer, and you could like show like just a real quick, like it would be really great to see in a special presentation him save Zenlaw from almost being eaten by Galactus. Like see like the planet go into chaos, see everybody like freak out, see how it causes like turmoil and just like everybody to lose their minds when they find out Galactus is coming, and then see like him make the plead to Galactus and save
Become the herald.
people from like utter destruction, and then the special presentation ends with like him becoming the herald and leaving, and boom.
And that's similar to how they could do Nova. Is basically it focuses on the fall of Xandar, all the aftermath. John C. Reilly's character leaving, going wherever either he finds Richard Rider or Sam Alexander, and then at the very end transferring the power. And then also we see like the glowing, Nova Corp person, or Nova glowing at the end, and then that's it. And then we see Nova actually proper in their project. So.
And I'm sure that there were other Nova that were, other places in the galaxy. I'm sure they all weren't on Xandar when Thanos came. So there's probably like, other Nova that were other places and stuff. So maybe like there was just one that was off on a mission somewhere or something, and then he comes back and finds Xandar in ruins. That'd be another little interesting thing that they could do. But But yeah, I mean, they could definitely do a few different things there with that special presentation.
Next up, we have some New World Order news. So basically, the rumor is, well, actually, it was first a rumor, and now it's being reported now that Harrison Ford joins the cast of Captain America: New World Order as Red Hulk / General Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross. So at first, it was a rumor that he was going to be Red Hulk. Now it's turned to reports that he's going to be General Ross / Red Hulk in New World Order. So I wonder if the whole thing with New World Order and that being about the Hulks and that kind of stuff, if that we first see him as General Ross, and then by the films, during the film or by the films, and he makes that transition into Red Hulk. And I know Andy's going to say something about this.
No, I'm not. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it, if I'm honest. Not to do with the T'Challa thing. I'm not going to go down that route. But I don't know. I liked. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he's 80 years old, isn't he?
Yeah,
he's 80 years old. I mean, having said that, Samuel Jackson's like 73, so they can work as long as they can work. But apparently, as you were saying, Jarian, apparently he was having a hard time on the set of
Indiana Jones. Yeah.
But then, as Alex has been saying, we could have this kind of off-screen transformation into Red Hulk, and he could do a lot of his work, from the sofa almost, I guess.
Yeah, I thought when this was a rumor that he would just be the voice of Red Hulk, and that's it. Not have to be Ross, not worry about the transformation. Do like Alex been saying, the transformation off screen, but it sounds like he will be Ross for a little bit and then transition into Red Hulk. From the chat, I just can't believe the Harrison Ford situation. That's going to require a younger actor, I would think. Yeah, it's like, how long are they going to keep Red Hulk around? And maybe if he isn't Red Hulk, maybe he's just doing the Ross piece until the transition, and they do that, and they do something else. Now they can do all kinds of things, technology and voices and that kind of stuff. And look at Ross Maniquat, who's done, how he can do voices and that kind of stuff. So I guess they could always bring someone else in to be Harrison Ford like voice if something happens. So I guess I don't know.
I almost feel like they're choosing Harrison Ford for like the face of the Red Hulk, for that kind of like how like Mark Ruffalo, they use his face for the whole
Smart Hulk.
Yeah, for Smart Hulk. So I feel like they're gonna do that, and you can almost do that, kind of use Harrison Ford as kind of like that Red Hulk guideline, and then I'm really hoping that they don't tell us that it's Ross in the beginning. They leave that part out, and we just have Red Hulk in the MCU for a long time, and then maybe like 5 years from now, somebody's like, "Oh yeah, by the way, that's Ross." Like,
yeah,
and they'll just probably maybe have him in enough stuff that maybe they can kind of do that thing where they get enough of dialogue from him, like in the future and stuff.
Right? Yeah.
Use it if they want to.
Marvel Zombies news. So reportedly, it's going to be 4 episodes. And it's going to be a spin-off of the What If Zombies episode from the What If series. It's going to have a 2024 release and will be TV MA, so TV mature, basically, is the news on that one.
Yeah.
So will that lead up to, or like will that lead up to the zombie event, or will that be like directly after? Did they say?
I don't know. Basically, all I know is the news I've seen. It's going to be a spin-off. So it sounds like after. It sounds like after.
I'm really looking forward to that. I think that'd be really good fun. Actually, I quite enjoyed that What If episode. But yeah, I'd like to see a little bit of all of it. If I'm totally honest, I'd like to see a little bit more fleshing out of that whole thing. But a big zombie fan, and I like the outbreak of an apocalypse. So I'd like to see a little bit more of the outbreak of that and how the world fell to zombies, and then maybe an episode around the same time as the What If episode, and then going further on.
Some Fantastic Four news. So Tom Ellis, who plays Lucifer, is reportedly in the running for Reed Richards.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, so he looks the part, and then I could see him being a Reed Richards, So, but yeah, apparently he's in the running for it, which means they probably have multiple people they're probably talking to for it. But it sounds like he's in the running from some of the reports out there. 2 more things in news before we get to She-Hulk, which I have some She-Hulk news, but we'll talk about that then. Loki, season 2 has wrapped filming according to set photos celebrating Wrap Day. So, and that's mid next year. I think that's released as well. So they're going to be in post production for that. So that's good to see. And then as far as this one's interesting, I was reading this one while I was coming back from Seattle. Murphy's Multiverse reported this one. He talked about Marvel's 10-year page-to-screen rule. So it sounds like at New York Comic Con, editor-in-chief CB Cebulski dropped an interesting nugget of information about the relationship between Marvel Comics and Marvel Studios, both of which are now overseen by Marvel's one above all, Kevin Feige. According to Cebulski, Marvel Comics works to stay about 10 years ahead of Marvel Studios. So basically, that comic arc are being told wouldn't make their way into the narrative fabric of the MCU until 2032 at least. But basically, on the flip side, it could also mean that Marvel Studios currently announced slate of projects could be pulling from comic arcs from 2012. So
What was in 2012?
I have to go back and look. I don't
Yeah,
really
I'm just
think about the years. Yeah.
I mean, that's not surprising though, because that's like around the time of when like Miss Marvel's comics came out, and we just
Yeah.
saw her
That's good.
show.
Yeah.
You
that's a good
know,
point.
like
Was that around the Secret Invasion time and Siege and the Dark Avengers and all that type of
That
stuff?
might have been. I need to go back and look too about Nova stuff also to see, what could be Nova come from, or other projects that are coming up, even Kang stuff.
Yeah.
So
I mean, but obviously there is still an absolute wealth of stories that they could go back to 60s.
yeah,
Yeah. There's still so much content out there, so many huge storylines that could still be adapted from stories from then. Like, they don't just have to draw from 2012. Obviously, they'd have to be adapted. They wouldn't translate as easily, I don't think, as the newer stuff into movies. It's even hard reading some of it, isn't it? It's not, oh, hi, I'm Iron Man. I'm going to blast you with these repulsor blasts that I build in my cave or whatever it is. It's a little bit, there's a word for it, isn't it? I can't remember what it is.
cheesy.
Yeah,
Almost.
let's just call it cheesy. But but they're hard to read anyway. Some of the older stuff from the 60s for us young guys anyway. I'm really hanging on to the young guy thing at the moment. But no, you get my point. They're hard to read sometimes. They're great stories, but they are more difficult to read. So they would take a little bit more adapting, but there's still loads of stories to be adapted.
Yeah, I mean, we've definitely adapted some things that weren't modern, in the MCU already. And we've definitely seen kind of like a modernization of some things. So for them to do that with some stories, I don't imagine that to be that big of a problem in the
No.
future.
Yeah, exactly.
So transitioning to She-Hulk, Jessica Gao talked about the Daredevil-centric episode. She said it just made so much sense that he would be on this show because both he and Jen are lawyers by day, superheroes outside the office, even though Jen is doing it reluctantly. What better character to kind of show off the struggle she's having is possible? When we first heard that we could use Daredevil, we started trying to break this episode during the first conversation. At one point, Cody Ziegler pulled a Daredevil comic out of his backpack. It was somehow already open to the page he was talking about and was waving it around and pointing at the panels that he was referring to. So this episode was written by somebody with a lot of Daredevil love. So she also mentioned that Daredevil Walk of Shame was originally supposed to be a post-credit scene.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
That's exactly. I mean, what a surprise.
And Gal also talked about Scar, which we saw at the end of the episode. So she said, from the beginning, we often talked about if there would be a cameo at the end, or in typical Marvel fashion, we would tease a new character at the very end. A big cameo would be completely dependent on who was available and who was willing to do it. And you can't really bank on that at script stage. We talked a lot about what character we could tease. Ultimately, it was Kevin who decided it should be Scar. His look is all Kevin Feige as well. And remember, from his haircut, remember who the barber on Sakaar was.
Who is it? Is there somebody playing Scar? Do we know who it is?
Yes, I have the actor's name. Hold on.
he was in Stargirl, right? Wasn't it?
Hold on. The actor was. Hold on, it's my notes here somewhere. Hold on. Will Dessner. So that's who plays Scar.
I don't know him.
I think he was the kid, the Zarek kid in Stargirl.
Okay.
I think.
I'll have to look him up. I don't know who he is either. So.
Okay.
But-
yeah, I was just seeing if I could just look him up quickly, but I think I spelled his name wrong. But yeah. Well, we'll come back to that in a minute, I think, maybe.
Kevin, Jessica Gao also went on to say that Kevin was very specific about Scar at a Gao, so I'm sure there's some plan in the future, though I have no idea what that might be. So, on the Scar piece. Tatiana Malazny also addressed the finale backlash. I just want them to know that I feel like whatever you feel about the finale is great. I love that people have trouble with it. It's difficult for some people, and other people are like, what a relief. I think it's challenging in the sense that it just disassembles a lot of things that we know to be true. And I think it's a very exciting notion. She also went to address the meta messaging in the series, which they predicted that very well, how they pulled this off and were torn in the series.
Absolutely brilliantly.
Yeah, Jessica Gao is a genius and knows about the culture war we're living in and her position in it when she's writing these stories about a woman superhero. She knows what the response is going to be. As a cast, it was delightful sending each other all these troll responses. Like, oh my God, give them a week and they're going to literally see this pop up verbatim in the show and become the villains of the show. It was telling. So that was interesting as well. And then the last piece here, Kevin Feige refused to voice Kevin. Jessica Gao said, we campaigned very hard for Kevin to do the voice and he refused. Yes, we did get in a fight over the hat because in the script it says that that She-Hulk enters the inner sanctum. There is this big Akira-like HAL 9000 type machine. The pre-Viz team had already started locking up all the types of versions of Kevin. They all had a little black baseball cap on top. Real Kevin says, you can't have it doesn't make any sense for a machine to wear this baseball hat. I was like, Kevin, this is a problem you have with all of us. So yeah, so that's all the news leading into She-Hulk.
That little peak was absolutely brilliant. Do you know what? I think somebody needs to actually stand up to Kevin Feige and go, actually, this is what's happening. Like, he doesn't need a load of yes men around him. He needs some people to actually challenge him, I think. Yeah, I mean, let's get stuck into the episode. Let's just let's crack on. It started pretty normally, I think, didn't it? Really, it was
no, because look at the intro. They went old school throwback to the Bill Bixby Hulk days for that intro. I love that intro. That's back to my childhood with that. The whole Bill Bixby playing Banner and the whole old school Luke Rigno Hulk. That was great.
It was scene for scene as well, wasn't it?
Yes,
it was really well done. Almost to the point. I've seen these. Have you seen online where they'll take a picture or a screenshot from a movie, and then they'll make it look like it was a scene from a comic, like they'll make it like it was a panel to try and trick people and go, oh look how close this was. There's loads of them out there, isn't there? Where there's I think there's one with Iron Man's walking away from the exploding tank behind him. There's loads of it, and they're like, yeah, look, they're straight, and they're like, no, someone's drawn that. Like, that wasn't in the comics like that. But it was almost they're as clever as that, aren't they? Where these scenes were like, the light where she's got the light on her head, it was like the exact same light on her head. So yeah, that was very, very well done.
And so the QR code for the episode is when she actually breaks out into Disney Plus and goes into the studios. Sensational She-Hulk 1989 number 50. And this is first published in 1993, written by Frank Miller. Sensational She-Hulk 50 breaks the fourth wall in a spectacular style after she finds out writer John Bryan has died and sets out to find a new writing team for her series. So that fit perfectly with that whole breaking, the extreme breaking the fourth wall, what we saw in the episode. And speaking of that, I'm kind of glad they did that, because that ending that they first started having, where basically Bruce pops back out of nowhere, starts fighting Abomination. He's trying to save Jen. And then the one Todd, what's his name, gets her blood and become, I'm like, I'm so glad they stopped that and changed that, because that would have been a very bad ending, in my opinion.
I feel like the cost there though is like, she says one thing though. She's like, nobody wants to see the Hulk fight Abomination again. And I'm like, yes, everybody wants to see the Hulk fight Abomination again. And the other thing is that kind of also throws the Intelligentsia stuff right out the window. Like, we built up to Intelligentsia, and now it's just kind of just like squash. Like, instantly.
Unless we find out, like in New World Order or down the line, that there is a real Intelligentsia and the leaders behind it or other behind it, and then Todd was just kind of a fall guy.
And I guess the Wrecking Crew was getting the blood for Todd. So I guess they were working for Todd in that case,
It'd be interesting to see how this whole thing fits into if it even does fit into the rest of the MCU. Like, I don't believe it will. And it's I don't know. I found the whole thing quite funny, if I'm totally honest. I found the whole thing as a bit of it was like you were saying, Joey, and it was that the whole thing was them trolling us. Like, as fans, they were like, look, this is what you thought you were going to get. You're completely wrong. Like, that wasn't what was going to happen. That was never what was going to happen. And if it was what was going to happen, I'm just going to go, no, that's not happening.
You ever seen that movie Click with Adam Sandler, when he has the remote and he can fast forward? Yeah, it almost felt like that in a way, the way they did the end of that. She's like, wait a second, let's change this up. But it was pretty cool seeing her kind of break out and go into the lot, because we got a couple Easter eggs there. So, first of all, I think season 2 basically was confirmed when she went into the backstage there, pretty much from what we heard there. It seemed like it was confirmed, or at least very largely hinted at as season 2 at a minimum. So there was that. But the other piece too was that, did you notice that when he said the CGI moved on to another project, we heard the Black Panther little sound?
Little flute.
So yeah. And then she also mentioned the movie, we'll say that for the movie. Is that going to be World War Hulk, or is that going to be New World Order lead in? Because like I said, it sounds like all roads from this are leading into New World Order.
Yeah, I feel like the blood thing is going to be like one of those things where it's like, oh, we don't really need that here. We're just going to put that in New World Order. And I kind of feel like that line that she says about like, she's standing there talking to Kevin, and actually it's Kevin who says, can you go ahead and transform now off screen? That way we can save money on the CGI. Like, I almost feel like that was them, like, almost recognizing. No, I almost feel like that was them recognizing that they probably weren't done with the CGI on this, or they were probably having issues. So they were probably just straight up, just like, kind of in a meta way, being like, hey, can you do this? Like, that way we can make this easier and finish this out, Like,
I got really not a good point. Just an observation that I made on this. Like, her CGI, once she got into, like, quote unquote, the real world, was brilliant. Like, her walking through, it was like, she's there, she's got to be there. It was really, really good. And when she was leaning over the table and talking, when she was first went to speak Kevin, I thought it was excellent. It was the best it's been for me throughout the entire show. And I was like, did they do that on purpose? Like, was it better now than what it has been? Because it seemed far better quality, in my opinion. It seemed far better quality from the moment she broke out, she broke the fourth wall, and she got out into the the menu, and then out into the real world. It seemed much better than all the rest of the show.
Yeah, I agree.
In my opinion. So I don't know on purpose.
So coming from the chat here, why would writers be in a writing room unless they're writing season 2, since season 1 was over? Maybe. So again, more hints there that it looks like we are getting a season 2 of She-Hulk, or maybe She-Hulk and Daredevil. I don't know. Who knows?
Maybe it was just a joke.
Yeah, that could have been a joke too. So
the whole thing was a bit of a joke, wasn't it? I going back to the conversation on the observations of the show from outside, this toxic fandom, whatever you want to call it. I'm still blown away by the fact that they almost completely and utterly predicted exactly what the reaction to this show would be, and then put it in the show.
Yep.
That was 9 months ago when they wrote that, or however long ago, and they've put it in the show, and it was 100% relevant, almost to the day that they released it. I mean, that is clever. That is clever. That is clever from the writer's point of view. That is really clever. You've got to admit. I would not even. It wouldn't even come into my mind to be able to do that. And I mentioned it last week about the fact that when South Park around season 18 wrote week on week, it feels like this has been written week on week.
Yeah, it's almost like they saw when She-Hulk was first announced and said, we're already seeing the backlash of She-Hulk already, and they kind of said, you know what, let's start putting some of this stuff in the show to be prepared for it, because we know we're going to get more once the show releases.
Yes. Yeah. I just thought it was I thought it was super clever when they were in the room at the end when Intelligentsia were all talking. Like, you could just they've literally lifted comments from some Facebook pages and just put them into the show. Just say that'd be fine. I reckon they probably have.
I just think it's so funny that Intelligentsia is meeting with Abomination at his place where she's going, while her friends are going there because they don't know what's there, but they know Intelligentsia is meeting there, and it's just like this weird spider web of all roads lead to Abomination's house. You know what I'm saying? Like,
but that was more part of the joke as well, though, wasn't it? I think that was more kind of like, how is everybody here? It's ridiculous. That and it's almost like she turned around and went, you couldn't even write this stuff. And it's like, hold on, that's exactly what someone's done, and they're doing a bad job at it. So,
comment from the group here, chat. The CGI in the final shot on the courthouse steps was the best shot of the whole series, which I agree. That was really good. And like Andy said too, when she broke out into the fourth wall into Disney Plus, that was really good also as well.
Yeah, come on, admit it. Who thought that they'd sort of accidentally nudged their remote with their elbow when that?
Yeah, I was like, it made me think for a second, like, what's going on here? So
it took a few moments. It took a few moments, and because I was sitting a slightly different position to where I normally sit when we watch the Marvel shows, and I thought I'd done that. And everyone, what have you done? I went, nothing, and I went, oh, well done. And I was like, and then just this grin on my face come up about, oh, this is absolutely fantastic. And I thought that whole scene was great. They were breaking through the Disney Plus menu. I thought that was genius.
I was like rewriting that scene in my head, but with Deadpool, just imagining him going into Marvel Studios and like taking writers hostage and being like, "This is the way you're gonna tell my story," and stuff like that. Like just all kinds of ridiculous.
You know what would have been really great with Deadpool if she kind of looked down, just scrolled down, and then all of a sudden Deadpool's like hanging out of his window, going, "Oh, hi."
She opens up a door and there's just Deadpool sitting in a room, and he's like, "Hey," and the door.
Maybe you're here too.
Maybe she closes the door and goes, "We're not ready for that one yet."
Yeah.
It closes the door and carries on. That would have been really cool, actually. And the whole bit with me and Kevin as well. I just thought that was genius. The way that it was all kind of it gave me Neo meets the Architect vibes.
Yes.
And he was like Otto from Wall-E as well, wasn't he? But I loved his little hat. I thought that was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Just this way that they sort of churn out all this stuff, that's what they're perceived as, churning out all of these things. This kind of common, cookie cutter type stuff, and that's what this robot is about. I thought it was really, really clever.
So I have a big question now. So how did Abomination get his inhibitor off for a second time? Right?
I feel like he didn't like. What's weird is they almost like kind of explain that the inhibitor is almost like one of those things where they can still change. They can still change. It just almost, it doesn't really inhibit them. It just lets them know when they change almost. Like that was kind of like what I got from it, because I almost felt like he didn't get his inhibitor off. He just changed. And then they show up and they're like, "Why is your inhibitor going off?" And he's like, "Oh, like I was chasing a chicken and tripped the line or whatever, and like broke the perimeter." So it almost feels like for him, it doesn't really inhibit him.
But then Jen couldn't change to She-Hulk when the whole scene was happening. She was still on human form, and that's what she used to break into into Disney Plus. So I don't know, the whole inhibitor thing seems kind of off. I don't know how they're explaining it, but it was interesting to see that he, easily, went back to jail. Was like, okay, whatever. It's like he almost knew that,
He knew. right.
that one was going to come.
Well,
Yeah.
and she,
Oh, here we go. Someone said he put it on the chicken in the art scenes at the end. So I gotta go back and double check that one. I didn't notice that. So that's a good shout out from the chat. Thank you.
yeah, I don't know.
Put it on the chicken. So a couple of comments, and I make this one right, I guess. Somebody said, does this give Jen this kind of ultimate power to just rewrite anything whenever she wants to? So if something's going wrong, can she just break out and go and speak to Kevin? But then, having said that, Kevin did say you've kind of lost your Kevin privileges, didn't he?
Yeah,
Say,
they closed that loophole.
yeah.
It's like they patched the security vulnerability. Because if they didn't, it's like, okay, well, is Deadpool going to do the same thing, or what's going to go on there? So
Yeah, that was kind of like the ultimate fourth wall break, wasn't it?
yeah,
Yeah, and I hope they don't do anything with Deadpool like that. Stay away from that.
Other than, I don't know, but him doing the whole "you're right in time," the turn back time thing at the end of Deadpool 2, and then the post credit, the Furious Bureau like thing. What are you still doing here? Go home. I like that kind of stuff. So if they do it like in a Deadpool type of way, I wouldn't mind it.
Mm.
Let's move on to like the scene at Jen's house with the family, right?
Mm.
So Matt Murdock, man, it's great seeing him in a different, different way instead of just being the dark brooding way. To see him in a different, having a good time, being in a relationship, that kind of thing. But that whole family scene was kind of awkward for him because the way was the aunt or somebody, the way she was talking to and asking him questions, and the husband kind of like, you need to come help me, get away from him.
Well, and the dad who's like, so what's your plans with children? Do you make a lot of money? So, so you work for free, huh? Like, oh, so you don't make a lot of money. And he's just like, oh, yeah, like to help people. Like, like
interrogating the boyfriend sort of thing, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I found that quite funny. I just before we go on to where we're going to go with this one after this conversation, the whole argument of, they've made Matt Murdock look like a goof, and they made him all of this and blah 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 blah. And it's like we've said this a number of times. It's him in somebody else's house as such. He's living by somebody else's rules. He's playing by somebody else's rules, because it's not Matt Murdock or Daredevil in a Daredevil title. It's Daredevil / Matt Murdock in a She-Hulk title. So he's got to act in a way that's appropriate to be in a She-Hulk title, in the exact same way that if Daredevil showed up in a She-Hulk comic, he wouldn't be in the same way as if he was in his own title.
It's like playing a board game. You don't go and quit playing Monopoly and play like Sorry and play Sorry the same way that you played Monopoly. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Like it's kind of like that kind of, I guess, logic there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm hoping. I am hoping, and I'm not gonna hold my breath too much, because obviously this is a Disney property now rather than Netflix or whatever you want to say. But I'm hoping when we see Born Again, we do get a little bit more of that sort of shade character that we saw in the Netflix series. And I'm certain we won't see the same type of character that we've just seen in the She-Hulk series, because he's not going to be in her house anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like Echo, we're probably gonna get a totally different Matt Murdock in Echo, and then into his series. So
I almost feel like that costume will only be seen in She-Hulk, the red and yellow one, and they'll go right to the new costume when Born Again starts. That second one that he talked about in the show.
Yeah, because he said Luke made him a couple of suits, didn't he?
Yep.
So, yeah, totally. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's almost like actually when he shows up in this property, he's going to be wearing this outfit because it suits that persona that he's got within that property. But again, it's exactly the same as a comic. Punisher showed up. It shows up in plenty of people's comics. It doesn't mean he's going to just start decapitating people.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that's a moot argument, to be totally honest.
Mm-hmm.
So Bruce showing up, hey, I have a son now. This is Scar. That was kind of, I don't know. That was, it seemed like a forced intro to Scar. I understand they wanted Scar in the game, but it just seemed like it was a forced intro into Scar in the MCU.
Yeah.
Because, they almost like the ship showed up in the first episode from Sakaar. then he goes off and saying, "Hey, I got to go back." We see him flying there, and all of a sudden he just pops up. I don't know. It seemed kind of lazy writing to me with that whole sequence.
Yeah, I agree. I think if my only complaint about that was that moment there, I just thought it was great how he come in and then went into the fight, and then she went, "No, that's ridiculous. What, he's dropped him from another planet?" And you were like, "Yeah, that's what I was thinking." And then all of a sudden, he has dropped him from another planet with us, and it's like, oh, that didn't. I thought she's already told us that was stupid, which we all agreed with, and now he's doing it anyway.
Which, since like the beginning of this show, I kind of felt like, that would take a back seat. I mean, all the scenes with him going to Sakaar have been kind of just like hey, let's quickly get past this, get this in and get this out type of scene. So him kind of being introduced that way with Bruce, like walking in saying, "Hey, this is my son," like it's kind of, it feels almost just like that it was too quick. Like we didn't, it was just like, "Hey, let's get this out there and get this in real quick at the end of the episode."
Yeah.
And it definitely should have been one of those things where there should have been some build up to it, I think.
You know what? Even if there would have been another scene or a post-credit scene, I just don't see why are they back on Earth? Like, why? How are they back on Earth that quickly? When's this movie going to be, or this show going to be with Hulk? Like, I don't know. Could they have not done that on Sakaar? Could it not have been a different scene? Do you know what I mean? Like, why did he have to be in Jen's garden with his son?
From the chat, the writers thought they pulled a 5D chess move.
Well, and the other interesting thing, and I know that time works differently on Sakaar, but like Bruce went as Hulk to Sakaar in like 2015, so he would be like 8 years old, like by Earth years. So like, I'm not sure how time works in comparison to Earth years here, but like, he could very well be a lot older there.
Yeah, I think we're a little bit further because he went in 2015, but I think we're actually at about 2025 now in the MCU.
Okay, so he'd be like 10.
Yeah, 10 Earth years. Remember, Scar is both human and Hulk form as well.
Yeah.
And originally, Hulk thought that, I think in the comics, remember correctly, that there was a ship that blew up, and they thought he originally was dead in the comics, that there was no child. Was it like Korea the Old Strong or something like that? Remember correctly? And so interesting, but even though he was a human in a Hulk form, he looked more smart Hulk form than Hulk form. So I wonder how they're going to explain that.
Yeah, I hope they. Yeah, that whole bit didn't fit for me, if I'm honest. Like, his look, Bruce's look, he's getting. I don't want to jump on that train of like, if you're ruining the Hulk and all of this, I really don't. But I don't want to, but I am. And even the Abomination. I mean, I'm not having to go at Tim Roth, but he grew as the Abomination. He got this massive sort of, beastly looking thing with a really sort of cute, almost human face. And in his voice. And it's like, come on, like, everything's about him has changed. Why would his voice not change? And why would his face stay almost exactly the same as Tim Roth's face? So, and I don't like complaining, but when I don't like something, I will.
And I love that scene where him and Bruce first lock up, where he grabs Jen and saves her, and then Bruce comes right at him. Smart Hulk comes running at him, and they lock up and they stand there. And I was like, "Oh, here we go!" And then when it freezes, and she's like, "Oh, nobody wants to see that," I'm like screaming at the TV. I'm like, "No, go back to that, just please, just for like 30 more seconds." Just because we never really got to see Abomination really do anything in the show.
Yeah, that is true. There we go. We've got KFC fan 1. He's got to go. Bye. Had fun. Yeah, we've had fun. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for your input into the show. Hopefully we'll see you again.
And so then we get to basically the post-credit scene, right? So, Emil back in prison, DODC Supermax, and here comes Wong, taking him back out. So I wonder what adventures that Abomination / Emil and Wong are going to go on. We saw them, first from Shang-Chi in the fighting. Where's that going to go, and what's Wong going to end up doing with him? Is he going to take him in similar to they took America Chavez in at Kamatage and training and that kind of stuff? So I wonder where that's going to go.
Wong sure built some kind of rapport with him. It's really interesting that they did that off screen. I'm really curious to see how that relationship developed and got so strong.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where did that connection start?
Like he didn't
Yep.
just like show up one day when Abomination was in jail and was like, "Hey."
There you go. That's Jamie. She's just
Yep.
literally said the exact same thing as what we've just said. That when did that start?
Yeah.
Like I almost wonder if I know at one time they did say that they were thinking about putting Abomination in a prison at the bottom of the ocean. And so I wonder if that actually did happen and Wong got him out, but then moved him to Supermax. I don't know, but it'd be interesting to see how they did meet. That's a great question. From the chat here, I was hoping for more character development for Jin, which we got some, but yeah, I agree with that too as well.
Yeah, I don't know. I was quite pleased with the development we got from her. I think she understood herself a little bit more, and she understood her role as Hulk, a Hulk, a little bit more as the show went on, and what she was capable of, and what were her triggers. I think we worked that one out as well. What type of person she is. I think she showed that a little bit more in that sort of cheeky side of her towards the end of the series. Especially in that last little comment there that she had about, she said about she smashes fourth walls and sometimes Matt Murdock and then go down. I just thought that was great. Just a real sort of like, why can't she be, promiscuous like that and have that that cheeky side to her? And I think she did find out a little bit more about herself. Be interesting. Who's that? Magic T. What sort of things would you have liked to have seen? What sort of development would you have liked to have seen that you didn't see in the show? Because like I say, I personally, I saw some development. I quite enjoyed it. What was missing for you?
And for me, I don't really have an issue with Jin. I was more concerned about the development of the Wrecking Crew. Like you heard me say many times, like, I wanted them to be explored a little bit more. And I was just like, okay. So we see the Wrecker again in this episode, and he's like doing what? Like making soup in the kitchen or something, making tea in the kitchen or something. Like, and that's pretty much it. Like,
the tea with blood or something, or
yeah,
put in it. Yeah.
Saracen puts chicken blood in it.
Yeah.
Like,
that can't be the real Wrecking Crew. That can't be what we're going to get from them, surely. I just like, what was it? Was it who was the lawyer guy that was going with Nikki everywhere? What was his name?
Pug. Yeah.
How good was it when he went in and he sort of goes? He walks up to those guys and goes, "Females."
Well, I just love how like she tells him, she's like, "Just put a headphone in. Everybody does it. You'll be perfectly fine." He walks right in. He's the only one with a headphone in. The whole entire scene, like walking around, I'm like, that just looks so odd to me. Like in this like top secret place, and he's the only person with a headphone in walking around. But whatever.
Yeah. That was he was comical. He was comical. But yeah, I don't know where Abomination and Wong are going. I've still got a left field theory that Wong could be a Skrull and that he's taking Abomination and using him. I don't know. Maybe that is a bit silly. Probably, I don't know. Someone's got to be a Skrull.
I mean, Wong straight up admitted to a crime, and they were like, "Wait, so you just admitted to a crime?" And he was like, "Well, I'm out of here. Like, see you later." Like, so I mean, he's kind of doing his own thing. So
yeah, he is. Yeah, he's almost like a law unto himself, isn't he? Like he's like, well, actually, I'm the Sorcerer Supreme. I can just sort of do and go wherever I want, whenever I want to go there.
Basically,
yeah. Where do we think we're going to see her again? It's got to be New World Order, surely.
New World Order. Maybe we see her pop up in Daredevil, maybe even, or some kind of, tie into her. I wonder how that's going to work with, because we know there's a whole relationship with Echo, with Maya Lopez and Murdoch, Daredevil. How that dynamic is going to work in the MCU. Is there going to be any kind of rivalry set up there, any kind of jealousy, anything like that? Or are they going to keep those completely separate? But definitely, yeah. New World Order, I think. I'm trying to think anything else, maybe. I wouldn't be surprised if we see someone from this series in Thunderbolts. That's as a tie-in.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely think we're with Scar now, we're definitely getting more Young Avengers tease here, type stuff. I know we had the convo in the group that someone thought that maybe they could be combining Scar and Hulkling together in the MCU, which I agree with Andy's take on that. I don't think they are. I think they're going to keep those separate. Hulkling would be perfect to introduce during Secret Wars or or Secret Invasion, to kind of help remediate that, those issues from there. So yeah, I don't know.
Any closing thoughts?
I don't think so. I think
We
we
have
pretty much
it.
covered everything.
I think we have. Overall rating She-Hulk. Let's give it a quick rating. Where you sitting, Jaren? Alex is throwing his head low. I'm thinking.
I don't know. I thought it was a fun show. I liked it. Definitely a different change of pace. I probably put it in the middle tier of Disney Plus series. I'm still keeping, Miss Marvel as probably one of my favorites. From the chat here, someone goes A+. There's things I liked and disliked about it, so I think I'll keep it as a middle tier show for me on Disney Plus.
All right, so I'm just gonna say if it were episodes 1 through 8, I would score this show higher.
That's a
in
great
my
point.
opinion. But since it's episodes 1 through 9, I guess I would give it, if out of a 10, I would give it maybe at highest a 6 out of 10.
Yeah, I think for me it's again, it's one of those things, isn't it? It's his art. I was just talking to my friend who I was with just a moment ago, well, a couple of hours ago now, and it's like art. It's like if we had 3 paintings that we all chose 3 paintings, we'd think that they were great paintings. The other person might not quite like that painting as much as we do, and that's fine because you're not going to, are you? It's subjective. It's viewing this entertainment and this piece through your own eyes and through your brain. So, I mean, for me, I really liked Hawkeye, and apart from a couple of errors, and I don't want to go into it, Jaren, right? But I quite like Black Widow. I thought Black Widow was really good. It had all the things that I really like about movies. It had the espionage, the car chases, the fight scenes, the sort of thriller aspects, the spy aspects. It had a lot of good aspects, a lot of good things that I like, and a lot of people rate it as their worst Marvel movie. So it's all relative, isn't it? So for me, I like the change of pace of it, like Jarian. I like that they tried to do something different. And I liked her. I thought she was fantastic. I thought she was really, really good. So again, I think with Jarian, yeah, and probably with you, Alex, as well. Middle of the road.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Should we wrap this one up then, guys?
Yeah, but I just want to say Alex had a great point about the first 8 episodes and the 9th one. I thought they kind of did a cool twist with the 9th one, but the whole introduction of Scar and that's kind of throwing me for a loop still. So
Yeah, and the thing about me with episode 9 is I actually don't think She-Hulk was that bad in the episode. I just think the issue was the writing for me.
Yeah.
With the episode. So it has really nothing to do with anybody acting or anything. It was just the way that everything was presented for me personally. But
Cool. We'll be back next week for a very standard episode, won't we? Because we've got no show to talk about. We'll have some news. We won't got any movies to talk about, but a couple of weeks time we're going to be having Martin Flanagan, our Marvel professor, back on, and we're going to be talking about the genre of the superhero sort of world and the subgenres within it, and how Marvel Studios and Disney have diversified their offering. And then we'll have a Black Panther preview, a Black Panther review, and then we'll be into the holiday season and looking at Guardians, and in the new year other bits and pieces. So we've got some interesting episodes coming up, but we will catch you next week for the news of the week. Take care.
see you guys.
bye.
Why don't you tell them about the time we faced doom?
All right. Well,